November 18, 1978. On this day, over 900 people, including men, women, and children, died in a mass suicide murder in Jonestown, Guyana. The world watched in horror as the news broke. This was no accident. It was a carefully orchestrated tragedy masterminded by a charismatic yet deeply disturbed leader, Jim Jones. Jonestown was a remote settlement founded by Jones, the leader of a religious group called the People's Temple. Jones, a captivating orator, promised his followers utopia. He painted a picture of a paradise free from racism, poverty, and injustice. Thousands flocked to him seeking solace and a better life. The Jonestown Massacre sent shockwaves across the globe. It exposed the dangers of unchecked power and the dark side of blind faith. The event became a chilling reminder of the vulnerability of the human psyche and the devastating allure of charismatic leaders. The legacy of the Jonestown Massacre lives on, serving as a stark reminder of the importance of critical thinking, individual autonomy, and the need for vigilance against all forms of manipulation. The events of that day continue to haunt us, compelling us to learn from the past and work towards a future where such tragedies are never repeated. The roots of the Jonestown tragedy can be traced back to the humble beginnings of the People's Temple. Founded by Jim Jones in Indianapolis, Indiana in 1955, the temple initially attracted followers with its message of racial equality and social justice. Jones, a dynamic speaker, quickly gained a loyal following, particularly among marginalized communities. He preached a gospel of inclusivity and communal living, appealing to those seeking belonging and a sense of purpose. However, beneath the facade of social progressivism, Jones harbored a dark side. He craved absolute power and control, manipulating his followers through fear, intimidation, and psychological manipulation. He instilled in them a deep-seated fear of the outside world, portraying it as wicked and dangerous. He demanded complete obedience, isolating his followers from their families and friends. As Jones's power grew, so did his paranoia and megalomania. He began to refer to himself as Father, demanding absolute devotion from his followers. This constant barrage of fear and manipulation created an environment of unquestioning loyalty, paving the way for the horrors that would later unfold in Jonestown. In the early 1970s, facing mounting scrutiny from the media and law enforcement, Jones embarked on a new chapter in his quest for absolute control. This vision led him to the jungles of Guyana, a small South American nation, where he began to establish Jonestown. Jones presented the move to Guyana as a chance for a fresh start, a chance to build a socialist paradise free from the evils of capitalism and racism. Many, disillusioned with American society and yearning for a better life, readily embraced this vision, packing their belongings and following their charismatic leader into the unknown. The reality of Jonestown, however, was a far cry from the idyllic paradise Jones had promised. The settlement was remote, isolated, and plagued by harsh living conditions. Despite the hardships, Jones's grip on his followers remained firm. The once hopeful dream of a utopian paradise had transformed into a nightmare of isolation, control, and despair. Jim Jones's reign of terror was built not on brute force, but on a sophisticated system of psychological manipulation that ensnared his followers' minds and souls. One of Jones's most effective tools was fear. He bombarded his followers with constant messages of impending doom, warning of nuclear war, race wars, and government conspiracies. This constant fear-mongering created a climate of paranoia and dependency, making his followers more susceptible to his control. Another key tactic was isolation. Jones deliberately cut off his followers from their families and friends, severing their ties to the outside world. This isolation created an echo chamber where his word was law and dissenting voices were silenced, amplifying his influence and control. Jones also exploited the basic human need for belonging and purpose. Life in Jonestown was a stark contrast to the utopian vision Jim Jones had promised. The reality was one of hardship, toil, and constant surveillance. The residents of Jonestown endured grueling workdays, often laboring from dawn till dusk in the fields or on construction projects. The tropical climate was relentless, food was scarce, and living conditions were cramped and unsanitary. Yet any complaint or sign of discontent was met with swift and brutal punishment. Jones enforced his authority through a system of public humiliation, beatings, and imprisonment. Despite the hardships and oppression, many residents of Jonestown remained fiercely loyal to Jones. They clung to his words, even as their bodies grew weak and their spirits dwindled. The tragedy of Jonestown did not occur in a vacuum. There were numerous warning signs, red flags that signaled the danger brewing within the People's Temple. One of the most glaring red flags was the numerous accounts of abuse and manipulation that emerged from former members of the temple. They spoke of beatings, psychological torture, and financial exploitation. They described Jones's increasingly erratic behavior, his paranoia, and his growing obsession with power. Another warning sign was the temple's increasing isolation and secrecy. Jones's paranoia led him to sever ties with the outside world, cutting off communication with families and friends of temple members. Despite these warning signs, authorities were slow to react. This inaction and complacency allowed Jones to operate with impunity, paving the way for the tragedy that was to come. The events of November 18, 1978, unfolded with terrifying swiftness. The day began with the arrival of Congressman Leo Ryan, who had flown to Jonestown to investigate allegations of abuse and human rights violations within the temple. Ryan's visit, initially met with a carefully orchestrated facade of normalcy, quickly unraveled as several temple members expressed their desire to leave with the congressman. As Ryan and his delegation attempted to flee the settlement, they were gunned down by temple guards. Jones, realizing the gravity of his actions, gathered his followers together and convinced them that the only way to escape the coming invasion by government forces was to commit revolutionary suicide. Aftermath and investigations, searching for answers. The world watched in stunned silence as the news of the Jonestown Massacre unfolded. In the aftermath of the massacre, investigators from the United States and Guyana descended upon Jonestown, seeking to piece together the events that led to the tragedy. They combed through the wreckage, collected evidence, and interviewed survivors, trying to make sense of the unthinkable. The investigation revealed a complex web of factors, including Jones's manipulative personality, the cult's isolation, and the failure of authorities to heed warning signs. The Jonestown Massacre became a watershed moment in the study of cults and the psychology of persuasion. The Jonestown Massacre in popular culture. The Jonestown Massacre, with its chilling details and enduring mysteries, has left an indelible mark on popular culture. The tragedy has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, films, and songs, each attempting to grapple with the complex questions surrounding the event and its enduring legacy. One of the most well-known works about Jonestown is the 1980 documentary Guyana Tragedy: The Story of Jim Jones. The documentary provides a chilling glimpse into the cult's inner workings and the charismatic hold Jones had over his followers. The phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid," often used to describe blind obedience or unquestioning loyalty, has its roots in the Jonestown Massacre. Lessons learned: the enduring impact of Jonestown. The Jonestown Massacre stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of human reason and the devastating consequences of unchecked power. One of the most important lessons learned from Jonestown is the danger of charismatic leaders who demand absolute obedience. Jim Jones's manipulative personality, his ability to silence dissent, and his relentless pursuit of power ultimately led to the deaths of over 900 people. Another lesson is the danger of isolation and the importance of critical thinking. The tragedy underscores the importance of maintaining connections with the outside world, seeking diverse perspectives, and critically evaluating information, especially within group settings. Learning to recognize the signs of cult membership, such as isolation, control, and unquestioning obedience, can help individuals protect themselves and their loved ones from the dangers of cult involvement. Cults today, recognizing the warning signs. While the horrors of Jonestown may seem like a distant memory, the dangers of cults and the allure of charismatic leaders remain as real as ever. Cults continue to operate in various forms, often disguised as self-help groups, religious movements, or even business opportunities. It is crucial to remain vigilant, to educate ourselves about the tactics cults employ, and to recognize the warning signs that may indicate someone we know is being manipulated. One of the hallmarks of a cult is the presence of a charismatic leader who demands absolute obedience and loyalty. Cults also thrive on isolation, both physical and emotional. They may encourage members to cut ties with their families and friends, limit their contact with the outside world, and control the information they receive. Another warning sign is the use of manipulative techniques such as love bombing, guilt trips, peer pressure, and fear tactics. If you suspect that someone you know may be involved in a cult, it is important to approach the situation with caution and compassion. Instead, express your concern, reiterate your support, and encourage them to seek help from a qualified professional, such as a therapist or counselor, who specializes in cult intervention.